Okay, everybody, so I am reading The Way of Kings. I have now read 559 pages of this version right here. And if you've been following this series, I haven't read very much since we last spoke, but what I have read were 3 incredible interludes, introducing a couple of new characters and revisiting one that we already kind of know, and it has changed a lot. So let's talk about it. So interlude number 1 is Rysn, R-Y-S-N. Done no research, choosing to call her Rysn. It potentially is Rysn or something completely different, but we're going to go with Rysn for now. So her and Vistim, her Bablik, I believe it is, her master to her apprentice. They are from Thalen, if I'm not mistaken, and they are merchants. And Vistim is a master merchant, and they are off to see the Shin. First things we find out about the Shin, and the Shin is where Szeth is from, as far as I know anyway. They don't have Spren, it would appear. The grass doesn't hide away from the storms. They have soil instead of just rock. Basically, they live in a land that seems to be quite untouched and influenced by the storms. And as a process of that, the shard that I believe causes the storms. Meaning, if there is an opposite of this first shard causing the storms, or maybe that's called the origin, potentially mentioned by the second interlude, but we'll get to that. I feel like the opposite shard would exist over these misted mountains. If somewhere contains secrets, it's always misted mountains that break the storms, meaning that they're not really effective on the other side. So already this is quite exciting. So misted mountains, they don't appear to lie. They value the truth a lot. Their upper class are the farmers, and Szeth even mentions in his interlude the Valley of Truth. What is in the Valley of Truth? I don't know, but we will find out. And what makes the farmers so sacred? Like, what do they grow? What do they create that makes them so sacred? Is it just a different way of viewing the world, or are they creating something secret back there? Because I got the vibe that they are growing things that no one else is allowed to see. And it's not a stretch of imagination to imagine that Szeth is the person that was the Truthless, the warrior class, and so much more we found out, traded to this gentleman, Vistim. Is it Vistim? It's really annoying when they don't really put vowels in their names, even though I is obviously a vowel. Vistim, 7 years ago. So there's a small chance, a very small chance, that Vistim is responsible for the murder of King Gavilan that we saw. I don't believe that, but it's plausible if he is the one who held the Oathstone. But more likely, he sold Szeth's Oathstone and Szeth to the person who then commanded the death. So, unless they decided to sell Szeth after he had committed the murders. No, 7 years ago, it must have been before. Must have been before. So the plot thickens regardless. So we also discovered that the Shin really like metal, especially when they haven't had to break rock to find it. Rock is obviously pretty sacred to them, which leads me on to another guess. And we also know that they reject the fabrials. So the farmer, Vistim, not farmer, the merchant, Vistim, believes either they're too holy or unholy for them to touch them. I would guess the second one. I would guess they're unholy. I think they seem to be rejecting pretty much everything that the Alethi love. The other clues we get is that obviously the Shin love rock. The Krem kind of creates rock. So would they would be maybe worshipping whatever creates the Krem. I don't know if where the Krem comes from, if I'm honest. I've definitely missed a trick there, but I would guess it's probably the opposite, right? It's the opposite of the whatever shard is creating the storms. But then again, the Krem seems to come from the water from the storms, unless I'm mistaken. Anyway, they love rock. The creme has to be involved. And in Szeth's interlude, which we'll come to in a minute, he mentions, is it stone shamans? So when he dies, they will come and retrieve his shard blade. Why is that? Because they obviously don't want to mutilate rock, but shard blades cut through rock, and that kind of gets rid of the guess I just made where they reject shard blades. Maybe they don't reject shard blades. They just reject like soul casting and using a Fabriel. Man, this is confusing, but the rock stuff is the key, I think. But what would a stone shaman do? Maybe the shard blade is used to cut stone in certain ways or mold it to create something. The creme is involved here. I'm feeling pretty good about that. I cannot put these pieces together, and I suppose that's the whole point of the book. It would be a bit crazy if I could, but man, I have so many more. It's like someone just, I thought like I had like the outline of a big puzzle, and I kind of do. Like I feel like I have like maybe some of the borders, and someone came and dumped loads more pieces, and I thought these pieces were going to give me an even clear idea of what's in the middle, but it's just confused me more. But there's definitely more pieces. And then we move on to Axes the Collector, and Axes immediately gave me a very fun feeling. He reminded me a little bit of, is it Light Song in Warbreaker? Just because he clearly has some special powers and abilities. He clearly has some things that suck about his life, and he's low-key accepted the things that suck and is having a good time with his abilities. Very similar to Light Song, I think. So he awakens in an alley. He got himself very drunk on purpose to try and see the ale Spren. And Axes, by focusing on himself, can change things about himself. He got rid of his headache immediately, and I think a lot of us would kill for that, especially maybe if you'd had a few too many drinks. Being hungover, being able to wave that away immediately would be fantastic, how he does in the book. He also manages to change something else, and I can't remember what it was. Oh, he can change his skin, so he can like write on his skin, which reminds me of a movie called Memento, where someone he's searching for. He's a detective, basically, can't remember what happens the day before, so he writes and tattoos things on his skin to remember it. So it reminded me of that movie. And he wakes up in an alley, got himself super drunk to try and see the ale Spren, and he is collecting, in a sense, different type of Spren, and he's not physically collecting them, but seeing them and studying them and researching, and he gives us some amazing clues. He adds more pieces to this puzzle that don't make any sense, but make me know that the end picture is going to be more beautiful. We discover that Spren only appear in some places at some times, and I feel like we already knew that, but we didn't. We didn't realize that you can get just as drunk in some places and not see ale Spren, whereas if you get drunk in others, you will see the ale Spren. What does that mean? I don't know, but it's good information to have. We also figure out that Axes can morph his body as well, so his shadow goes backwards. So we also discover, it's an interesting name, Kukuri, I think, probably miles off, the Protector. And this is a huge Spren that comes out of the water at the same time every single day. And by his estimation, it's 100 feet tall, has 4 arms, faces the origin, which I would guess is the origin of the storms, and has lots of different human-looking faces that flash through it. That's a lot of information. What could it possibly mean? Well, it kind of leads towards the idea that the Spren were potentially human once, and they are spirits of something. And I think this is backed up by Syl a little bit. Syl seems to be getting a more and more human recollection of what's happened. And all of these faces seem to be longingly looking at the storm, the origin of the storm. So I had a couple of guesses. Either one, maybe they are all humans or people or souls who died in the water, potentially. Meaning every single one that dies there, like the Spren gets a bit bigger. I don't know why that would happen. That's a wild guess. It's just the first thing that came to mind. But they do seem to be pretty inexplicably linked to like the soul of something, if not the soul of humans somehow. But that's all I got. But also Szeth seems to mentions at some point, he says, they ignore the spirits of things around them when he's talking about the people that he's interacting with in his interlude. And I would guess he's talking about the Spren there, and that's what kind of leads me to think the Spren are souls. of the things around them, and maybe potentially people as well, the souls of people. So anyway, Axios can also morph his body at least a bit, and he has some kind of curse of unluckiness about him, which is super interesting. How do you get one of those? No idea. But yes, I think he's going to be a very fun character, and like I said, reminds me a bit of the Light Song predicament, where they're awesome, they try their best to influence the world around them, but they've also low-key just accepted the position they're in, that, you know, that it kind of stinks. How Light Song, and if you haven't read Warbreaker, this might be a bit of a spoiler, but Light Song had accepted this weird godlike status that he didn't feel like he deserved and didn't really enjoy, yet he was like, okay, well, I'm not enjoying it, but I might as well have some fun with it, if that makes sense. And it seems a bit like Axios is doing the same with his curse of unluckiness, if that's a word. On to Szeth. So this character is so interesting. Szeth has been working for like a mid-sized criminal, it would seem, going around doing his dirty work. This criminal hasn't figured out how awesomely powerful Szeth actually is, and neither have I. I haven't figured out how or why he's so awesomely powerful, especially not why. We saw some glimpses of what he could do, and it might even be a lot more than that based on what happens here. So anyway, he goes off to kill another one, and he is stopped by a shadowy figure who beat him to the punch and seems to know a lot about Szeth. Immediately something pops up. So Szeth says to this figure, "You sound like a Kukuri." No explanation. The word was in italics. What on earth is a Kukuri? I do not know. And it's moments like that when it's so hard, when it's just like a one word thing with no clues given. It's so hard not to Google something at that point, because you know so much is explained. But I've learned the hard way that you just simply can't Google anything. Even if you think it's something that you already know, if you Google it, some extra information will come up and you'll ruin something for yourself further down the line. So, what is a Kukuri? I don't know. I would love to know. It sounds really interesting, but we will find out later. So this person seems to be a soulcaster. They're shrouded in shadows. They seem to have an Alethi accent potentially, and it's definitely a man. Who could it be? I don't really know. Could be almost anybody, I suppose. Not almost anybody, but we don't really know who can soulcast out of the men. Yeah, and even this person isn't the master, so he claims he's not the master, this shrouded figure. Somebody else is. So we will find out at some point. But what he does essentially is he lets Szeth know that his master is now Szeth's master. He leaves him a list of people to kill and how to kill them. And Szeth's reaction is this is going to cause infighting and chaos like something we've never seen before. And this person knows what Szeth is capable of. So the list goes like this. The list is... So here's the list. 6 high princes. The Soleil of Gerontarch. Don't know what that is. Sounds awesome. Could potentially be like a religious figure. Could be the head of state. I don't know, but it's definitely the head of the Soleil of something, right? And then also the King of Jed Kavad. And there's how to kill them. I would guess there's what order to kill them. The first thing that comes to mind is, when did this happen? If this happened a little while ago, potentially the first death on that list was King Elokar, which would make sense because it would cause infighting, and maybe it needed to look like it was someone else's fault, and he decided to cut the strap on a saddle. That would make a lot of sense, and I'm guessing that did happen. So that's my big prediction so far. I don't have a bunch of predictions based on this information. Like I said, a lot of it is more confusing and exciting than it is something I can go and make guesses on. I'm buzzing that we're going to learn more about the Spren. The Spren are important. The Shin are hiding a big secret. It's rock related, potentially Krem related. What on earth did our boy Szeth do to get kicked out? Obviously he told lies in some form. But what did he tell lies about? And then these murders. Is someone going to be able to stop Szeth in time? Or just manage to take hold of his oath stone by killing somebody else? I would guess so. I don't think Szeth's going to die soon. What that means is probably there's going to be at least a few of those murders occur before someone is able to stop him. It's all very exciting. I suppose my big guesses from this is I've done a few little mumblings and bumblings and waffling about the Spren and the Shin and what's going to happen. But I suppose my big takeaway is that I think Szeth is already at work and he was the one who cut the strap for Elokar. So potentially he's already in the Alethi camp. Could the Soleil of Gerontarch potentially be a Parshendi? That would be really interesting because we'll get to learn more about them. And also, how is Axios going to fit into the story? It felt a bit like the trader girl could potentially not be in the story a lot moving forwards. Maybe she is, maybe she isn't. I mean, she's a merchant, so it would be useful if she kept on getting interludes and insights because she'd be moving around the country a lot. But Axios, I'm very much hoping is going to be in the story long term. Anyway, I didn't get to read much. I've still managed to talk for however long about what I did read, and it's just a testament to how awesome this book has been so far. I hope you've enjoyed. Please like and subscribe. It definitely helps out the channel, and I will see you on the next one, and I promise I will have read more. Thank you so much.